practices. And it points out there is no scientific evidence that the disease can be transmitted by blood or blood products. Emma Hart reports.
Batches of blood donated by people linked with CJD will be locked away by the Ministry of Health.
Blood products which they donated will be returned immediately to the Auckland Regional Blood Service, that's ARBS, and held in secure storage there.
This includes blood and blood products quarantined after fears of contamination. But they may still be used if there's a dire shortage of blood.
Only under exceptional circumstances will the blood and blood products be used, then only with informed consent of the recipient.
Health officials said again today there was no scientific evidence that CJD can be transmitted by blood. But the ministry says it's still taking a cautious approach, an approach welcomed by the Haemophiliac Society.
I know that the withholding of these products would not go along with other countries' policies on blood products. We are being more conservative than most countries, and I think it's a very good thing.
Also announced a screening policy to keep those who could be infected from giving blood. They'll include people who've had growth hormone treatments or fertility treatments, those who've had a family history of CJD, and those who've had tissue transplants, brain operations or corneal grafts.
The steps that we've taken, which the government has accepted, I think will ensure that on an ongoing basis we do have a very safe blood supply.
The ministry, however, won't be tracing further people who've received blood from CJD-linked donors as not to cause unnecessary distress to recipients. Emma Hart, One Network News.
3 people died instantly when their car hit a power pole in Wellington early today, taking the weekend death toll to 6. The 3 were killed when their car missed a bend, hit a power pole and landed upside down on a bridge in Happy Valley. The accident happened around 4 this morning, but it was another 3 hours before emergency services were called to the scene. Police believe speed was a factor.
And an elderly man and woman died when a fire gutted their flat in Taupo early this morning. A 13-year-old boy escaped the blaze unhurt. Fire safety officers are investigating but say it's not being treated as suspicious.
Meanwhile, a fuse box caused Auckland firefighters a few worrying moments last night. It's believed it sparked a fire at the back of a chicken processing plant. There was extensive damage to the factory, but no one was injured.
Across the Tasman, thousands of people have attended a service at the site of last month's Port Arthur massacre. The ceremony aimed not only to remember the 35 victims, but to offer a note of hope.
Let us all play our part in re-establishing peace and happiness in this place, so that in the hearts of men and women everywhere, they will know that good will always triumph over evil.
Organisers say today's service symbolised the rejection of violence and the reclamation of Port Arthur by the local community.
To the Middle East now, where the hardline Islamic group Hamas is vowing to avenge the capture of one of its top lieutenants. Israeli soldiers wounded and then seized Hassan Salameh in a late-night chase on the West Bank. Israel claims the Palestinian masterminded a spate of suicide bombings which killed nearly 60 Israelis earlier this year. The BBC's Jeremy Bowen reports.
This evening, Hassan Salameh is in hospital in Jerusalem, badly wounded. As soon as he is off the critical list, he will face a major interrogation. Last night in the Hamas stronghold of Hebron on the West Bank, he was shot by Israeli soldiers who had tried to stop his vehicle. He escaped, but was captured at a local hospital where he was being treated for bullet wounds. He told witnesses that he wanted to be a martyr, not a prisoner. The man who had been driving Salameh was also arrested. He shouted at the soldiers, "Shoot me if you call yourselves men." Later he was named as Razik al-Rajub, a relative of the man who heads the main Palestinian security police organization in the West Bank. By this morning, the Israelis were issuing this warning.
We are carrying out an ongoing campaign against those terrorists, and we're going to get each and every one of them.
The Israelis allege that Hassan Salameh planned 3 of the 4 suicide bombs that killed more than 60 people and shook this country to its roots in February and March. They destroyed the lead that the Prime Minister, Shimon Peres, had over the opposition and could still lose him this month's general election.
Meanwhile, in Turkey, security guards have foiled an assassination attempt against the country's president. President Demirel was opening a shopping centre when a man aimed a pistol at him. A security guard grappled with the would-be assassin and a gun went off, hitting a journalist in the leg. The gunman was overpowered as President Demirel was hurried away. The man was apparently angry over a military cooperation deal between Turkey and Israel.
To South Africa, where President Nelson Mandela has met the actor who'll play him in a movie about his life. Mr. Mandela hailed Sidney Poitier as a freedom fighter against racism. The first black actor to win an Oscar is in the Republic filming the TV movie One Man, One Vote.
Here at home, our newest national park, Kahurangi, was officially open today. But the celebrations come amid frustration from conservation workers over their pay. And the park has been opened on the eve of a government package designed to put money back into conservation. David Jameson reports.
There it is.
And New Zealand's newest national park is opened. 450,000 hectares, nearly 1 million acres. And the Conservation Minister won't be drawn on how big tomorrow's package to look after parks like Kahurangi will be.
You'll just have to wait another 24 hours. But I think that the hard work that I've put in will see results.
In previous days, environmentalists have said up to $103 million over several years may be needed for pest control and maintenance of the conservation estate, but that amount is highly unlikely. Many Conservation Department workers share concerns about money. They made a small but pointed statement to those who looked closely today. Some say their goodwill is running out, that they're on wages like $24,000 a year, working 60-hour weeks, and there's been no pay increase for the last 6 years. Today, others were focusing on the love of the job they do.
This is marvellous. We're in an absolutely wonderful place. And we're working here over the weekend on whatever our wages are. We are not actually getting paid. We're all doing this on time and low.
Dennis Marshall says pay negotiations are continuing on workers' behalves. David Jameson, One Network News.
Another milestone at Auckland's casino last night, with nearly 800 guests joining in a 1930s evening for the opening of New Zealand's second largest hotel, Harrah's Sky City. There are 344 rooms, the top-of-the-line presidential suites going for over $1,300 a night. Earlier, builders had their own celebrations after completing the final pour of concrete for the base of the tower, which is now 220 metres high.
To a much older building now, Christchurch's historic Riccarton House. Renovators peeling back the layers have discovered wallpaper thought to be 150 years old. David Asoma has more.
Riccarton House is a Canterbury classic, visited by thousands every year. Next to the grand entranceway is the morning room. It's the first part of the house, built in 1856. And it's here that the old wallpaper's been found.
They thought they might have been there, but they weren't sure. So that's why they called me in, really, to see if it was there.
The paper was found after Lynn Campbell scraped through 7 layers of wallpaper and paint.
There'd be very few houses in New Zealand that are 150 years old to start. So to be able to find the original wallpaper as we have today is most pleasing.
In Britain, it's probably quite common, but I've been in New Zealand 10 years now, and this is only the second that I've come across.
It was brought here by the homestead's original owners, Jane and John Deans, from Glasgow in 1852. The $1 million restoration of Riccarton House is at the halfway mark. The morning room will remain partly restored, so visitors can get an insight into how homes like it were built a century and a half ago. David DeSoma, One Network News.
Now, back in those days, you probably wouldn't have seen prison warders chasing world records as part of a fundraising drive. But today in Wanganui, a group of officers ended a 3-day marathon that saw them rowing a total of 1 million metres. And, as John Newton reports, it was all done inside.
Prison officer Rana Hiroti hates selling raffle tickets so much he decided to organise the world record bid instead. The guards rowed in 30-minute bursts during the day, then an hour at a time through the night.
Basically, my right leg has been going to sleep for the last 3 to 4 rows, and for the last sort of 10 to 15 minutes of each row, I've had to row more or less on one leg.
Workmates, friends and onlookers were welcome to row alongside. But finally, the guards' hard graft paid off.
How does it feel to set a new world record? I don't know. What do you reckon, honey? Okay, good. That's good.
The prison officers shaved 2 hours off the old record set by Hong Kong police with a new mark just under 69 hours for rowing 1 million metres. And they raised about $1,000 to send a team to the World Police and Fire Games in Canada next year. John Newton, One Network News.
The Emerald Isles have produced more than their fair share of rock superstars, with names like U2, Van Morrison, Enya and Sinead O'Connor. Another great Irish band, the Cranberries, flew here today for a 3-centre tour starting in Christchurch tomorrow night. David De Soma was at the airport.
There was a touch of irony about the Cranberries' arrival in Christchurch. Not a fan in sight for the biggest selling band in the land. Just a welcome laid on by the record company. The Cranberries' latest single, Salvation, is high in the singles charts. Their third album debuted at #1 and is still there 3 weeks on.
I suppose we wanted this album to be more like the Cranberries as we really, really are live, you know.
It's all part of a meteoric rise to superstardom for the Irish group that started with a search for a vocalist.
You don't think that you're going to be that lucky, that you're going to find somebody that can sing as well as she could.
O'Riordan's a reluctant star in a band that generally shuns the showbiz aspects of the industry. But that's going to be difficult. After shows in Christchurch, Wellington and Auckland, the Cranberries continue a world tour as gruelling as any. In fact, they'll be on the road till Christmas next year. David De Soma, One Network News.
Still to come, laying the groundwork for a new future in Takahui.
But first, Jeff has sport.
Yes, thanks, Angela. Auckland runs riot in the Super 12 semi-final. Waitakere sets its sights on more soccer silverware.
Cooper losing the challenge, and that's it for the minutes.
And the smoke-free rally moves to bring motorsport closer to town.